Hi everyone, happy new week, happy new week. I just decided to come on this live for something new that I'm introducing, a Sunday Live with Manya Kudirwa. I have so many things that I want to talk about, so many things that I want us to discuss. And I figured, yeah, why not have a Sunday Live where as we start a new week, we talk about something. It will be curated along the way, but for now it's going to be very random. Just talk about something quite important, something to reflect on as we step into a new week. So just last week, I'm in one of the groups for C-section moms because I am a C-section mom. And last month, actually in April, it was C-section Awareness Month. And this month, next week, it's going to be Mother's Day. So take Mother's Day, take C-section Awareness Month together. I thought it's a great time to talk about C-section, and particularly because last week I came across a post in one of the groups that I am in where one of the moms was encouraging other moms to start exercising, and she said, moms, you should start exercising, otherwise you end up with so many scars and be looking like a chameleon, which I thought was a very insensitive post. And so I thought it's important for us to talk about the stereotype around mothers that have given birth through C-section. And I'll share my story just to get us going. So I gave birth through a cesarean section, but that was not the plan. That was not the birth plan that we had. So what happened is that I was in labor for like 18 hours. I was in labor for 18 hours. My cervix was not dilating. I was on 2 centimeters for the longest time, despite that the contractions were happening. And so in the end, my gynae suggested that I should have either we do augmentation, which is basically a process where the contractions become rapid and they become also high in intensity to force labor or to force the way in which labor happens to speed it up. And the other option was a cesarean section. And I remember when my doctor said that to me, when my gynae said that to me, shout out to Dr. Mpume Swanda, that was my gynae back in Bulawayo. So when he suggested that I should have a cesarean section, I remember I cried. I literally had a breakdown where I cried. I had an emotional moment there. I cried. And I was asking him, I remember the first question I asked him was, how did we get here? When he said we should do either augmentation or we should do a C-section. I asked him, I said, how did we get here? Because I had a very low risk pregnancy. I didn't even have morning sickness. My skin was great. I carried very well throughout the pregnancy. So when he then suggested, after 18 hours in labor, when he suggested that we should have either augmentation or we should have a C-section, I asked him and I said, how did we get here? Because it didn't make sense to me. And when I had that breakdown, when I had that moment when I cried, my mom then also came in and she was with me. I was crying. She was praying with me. I had a moment to then reflect on that moment, just to think about it. I think the reason why I had that breakdown, it's not that I was scared of a C-section. I mean, I'm a surgeon's wife. I wasn't scared about the C-section, but I think I was disappointed. I was highly disappointed in myself that I had failed to push my baby. I felt that my body had let me down because I really wanted to give birth naturally. And I remember even during the pregnancy, I had conversations with my sister-in-law, and she'd laugh at me and say, Nompi, there are no marks of bravery. Just book an elective Caesar. Why do you want to do a natural birth? And I think the reason why I was insisting on a natural birth is because of the stereotype that surrounds C-section. I think now upon reflection, I realized I think the larger part of my thinking was exactly that I wanted to be recognized as a courageous mom. I wanted to be recognized as a brave mom. I wanted to be recognized and celebrated as a strong mom, that I naturally pushed my baby, that I did not have even an epidural, that I did it unmedicated, and I naturally gave birth to my baby. So the idea of a C-section was far from it. I didn't even want to hear about it. until when it was now an emergency and it had to be done. Otherwise, the baby would go into distress. So I realized that indeed there is a stereotype that surrounds giving birth through a C-section. And because last month was C-section Awareness Month and next weekend we're celebrating moms, it's Mother's Day, I thought it's just important for us to talk about it. My point mainly being that we need to start addressing this stereotype. And for moms like me that had C-sections, we need to stop shaming ourselves. There's nothing wrong with giving birth through C-section. There are various ways of giving birth. That's why we all have a birth plan. And C-section is just one method of giving birth. And I think we need to stop shaming ourselves for giving birth through a C-section. It does not mean we took the easy way out. We did not. And I think in the following weeks, we can talk about that as well. Just some of the complications surrounding C-section birth itself. And for the record, I'm not a medical doctor, and this is not medical advice, but just reflections on this conversation, on this topic, as I see things happening. So next week, as we celebrate moms, C-section moms know that you are celebrated too, and you deserve to be celebrated. We definitely need to do away with the shame of C-section, that we had an easy way out. We did not have an easy way out. And I just wanted to highlight also, because that post for me showed also such a high level of ignorance. Like, why would you say to another mom, you're going to look like a chameleon with all the scars from C-section? It's definitely so much ignorance, because for others that have had cesarean sections, it has been because of emergencies. Like I said, for me, I'd been in labor for over 18 hours and I was not dilating, and in order to avoid the baby getting into distress, I had to get a cesarean section. And you'll find that in my case as well, I was very lucky. I was in a private hospital at Mater Dei. I had nurses that were taking care of me every hour. They would come and check whether I was dilating. They would come and check my blood pressure. They would check also whether the baby is doing well, whether her heartbeat was still okay. So I had on the clock, round on the clock care, and I was very lucky about that. But I wanted to highlight that people have C-sections for so many reasons, including medical emergencies. So it's definitely wrong to shame moms that have had C-sections. But even if you had an elective, it's still okay. It's a way of giving birth, and you still deserve to be celebrated. So this was just a quick one for me to drop this on us as we reflect and as we lean forward to Mother's Day, to say we need to have a mindset shift around cesarean section, around all kinds of birth, even epidural as well. We need to just have a mindset shift in how we think about this conversation about childbirth. And I truly want to agree even with what my sister-in-law said the other time, that there are no marks for bravery. It's brave that you carry a child for 9 months. It's brave that you go through all the changes and all the symptoms and all the experiences associated with pregnancy and carrying a child. It's brave enough to take the step and the decision that you want to be a mom. It actually takes a lot of bravery just to make a decision to say, you know what, let's start trying, let's have a baby. I'm willing to carry this pregnancy all the way through. It's brave enough. So however way you decide to give birth to that child is not a measure of your strength. It's not a measure of how brave you are, how strong you are. It does not take anything away from who you are as a mom. All of us are moms that deserve to be celebrated for the mere reason that we took this step and we brought children into the world. And right now we are raising them. You know, giving birth to children, raising children is such a big task. It doesn't start and end with pregnancy and birth. There's a whole lot of process around parenting, around motherhood. And obviously, as a first-time mom, there are lots of things also that I'm willing to share about this experience. But for today, I just want us to have a quick chat to say it's okay whether you gave birth through an epidural, natural birth, or C-section. There's nothing wrong with it. I remember when my gynae suggested that I have a C-section, I also started thinking about things that I'd not done or things that I thought I'd done wrong. So, for example, I did not do masuo things. Maybe that's a conversation for another day. I did not do that. I did not take anything associated with masuo. And I know it's a very controversial conversation. It's anchored on culture and tradition, but also with science and new medication and fears around complications as well. There's a whole lot of conversation around that. And I remember when I was not dilating, you also start thinking, maybe I should have taken some things to help with labor. Maybe I should have done this. Maybe I should not have done that. And I don't think it's okay to be in such a position, especially when your thinking is anchored on the fact that you fear that you're not going to be celebrated or recognized enough because you had a C-section. So for today, as we think about this, I think the keynote is that we need to reflect on childbirth and appreciate the various methods of childbirth that are there, and not look down on any moms on the basis of the method of birth that they used. I carried that shame. I carried that stereotype with me, which is why I insisted and I wanted to have natural birth, and which is why I had a breakdown when my doctor was saying, you are not dilating, the child will get into distress. Let's go into theater or let's augment. I had a breakdown simply because I was carrying the stereotype and the shame that is associated with a cesarean section. And I didn't want people to say I had an easy way out. But in the end, and upon further reflection, I realized that this is an area that we need to think about and that we need to talk about. That it's high time we did away with the shame. So however method you use to give birth to your child, you are celebrated, you deserve to be celebrated, and well done to you. And thank you so much for everybody who has joined me this morning, this afternoon. It was such a random thing that I thought about to start a Sunday Live with Manya Kudira and just talk about things that I'm reflecting on. And I want to do a shout out to Wutle. She just shared an experience that she booked an elective C-section and she knew deep down that she wasn't going to push her whole baby. Actually, on that note, I think one thing that I've always said about myself is that I have a very low pain threshold. I have a very low pain threshold. So I actually also didn't think I'd be able to push a baby, but I was willing to test my body. I was willing to go through the experience. I wanted to go through the experience for sure. And I didn't even want an epidural. I remember I had a conversation with my gynae about it, but I didn't want it because I wanted to just go through the experience of natural birth. And I'd always tease my husband also to say, with this big head of yours, I'm going to suffer in labor. But in the end, I got a taste of two methods. I did go through the contractions, but in the end, I also ended up having a C-section. And I want to highlight also that I went to antenatal classes. So for those that are in Bulawayo, you can look for Sister Jan. Shout out to Sister Jan. I went for antenatal classes with Sister Jan, who is a very experienced midwife. So I had antenatal classes with her. I met first-time moms like me. And, we had classes with the dads as well. So as a family, as a couple, we had already gone through the motions of being prepared about childbirth, about labor. So I knew even what I needed to do when I went into labor. We had done the exercises, we had done the breathing, everything. There were lots of notes that we had been given by Sister Jan in terms of how to prepare for labor. So I was really prepared for natural birth. And I was willing to go through the motions, and my husband was with me in labor. He was helping me all the way, helping me with the exercises, giving me the massages and everything. Shout out to Nyakudira. So he was there, and he was standing with me all the way through this experience. But obviously, in the end, we ended up having a C-section. And he went into labor as well. He went into theater with me as well. He was there in the theater with me as I underwent through the process. And I want to highlight something also interesting about that moment. So when my doctor suggested that now we should go into a theater because otherwise the baby will get into distress, something that I also did, like I mentioned, my mom was with me and she was praying with me. My mom walked with me all the way right up to the door of the theater. So shout out to my mom. And she was sitting there until I came out. Can you believe it? And I know she was praying for me also even when I was going through that. And so when I had the C-section, I told my doctor that I wanted spinal anesthesia. I didn't want general anesthesia. I didn't want to go to sleep entirely, again, because of the fear associated with, big surgeries like that, and just sleeping. People talk about the myths that what if you don't wake up and stuff like that. So I did think about it in that moment, and but that was something that was part of what we had discussed earlier, that I didn't want general anesthesia. I wanted spinal, but in the end, also I ended up having general anesthesia. And yeah, that's how I gave birth to my Ivana. Initially went into labor, contractions and all, but finally C-section. And the reason why I'm sharing this experience was to just shed light on those that shame moms that had C-sections, to say there's nothing to be ashamed of, whether it's an elective, whether it's an emergency C-section, whether you have an epidural. There's no need to shame moms that go through that, because there are various ways in which you can give birth. And thanks to Faith, shout out to my little sister Faith. She says, thank you, mommy, for the insight, especially to us who are not moms yet. I didn't know about birth plan. So now that I know, I'm happy, and I'll start thinking about it for the future. Yes, definitely. There are lots of things that you need to think about when you start thinking about parenting and wanting to have a child. So your birth plan is definitely one, how you're going to give birth. And maybe we can also have another conversation later in terms of what to think about when you're preparing your birth plan and everything, sharing also from my experience when we're preparing for Ivana. But yeah, thank you everybody for joining. This is going to be a regular chat where we talk about various things, sometimes based or inspired by what I see over the week, based on my personal experiences, but also topical conversations that we need to start having as a community. So it's not just for moms, but also just as individuals, also as people that are like career people. I think we have a lot of things that we need to talk about. We have a lot of stereotypes that we need to dismantle. There are a lot of things that we need to address in our society. And I'm happy that I've had this idea to start a Sunday Live with Manya Kudirwa, where we are going to be talking all topical and important conversations. And for today, it was about C-section and other methods of childbirth as we gear up to celebrate moms next week. Cheers. Happy New Week.